Welcome to the Libertarian Atheist Skypecast. Today is Thursday, March 30th, 2017, and we have Jeremy, Heather, John, Betsy, Curran, and Adam. Welcome, everybody.
Whoa. Curran's here?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
He's lurking.
I thought I banned him.
Keep trying, but...
Nah, we can't ban Curran. I like Curran. I like all
I have
yous.
to tell you, Curran, that I crack up when I look at that post, and you have the little angry face when she announces that she's made us moderator.
I know, I kind of cracked up at that,
Every
too.
time
I was like...
look at that, I start laughing. It's like he's so mad that we...
I figure everyone's going to like it, so I'm like, what the heck?
I love that. Factory job.
You rebel, you. Curran's such a rebel.
More than it has to be. I'm gonna get my revenge. I can't do this in the corporate world, so I can get my revenge here.
See, there you go. There you go. All right, so today we're gonna finish up the video with Dave Rubin, Christina Hoff, Sommers, and and I can't think of the other. What's the last one, guys? I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head.
Dr. Peter Bogosian.
There we go.
Yes, Christina Hoff, Sommers, Dave Rubin, and Peter Bogosian at
we finished most
in
of the
Portland, I believe. Which university is this again?
Yeah, we finished most of it. We just need to do the Q&A section, which is worth a listen. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to some current events.
Okay. So yes.
That's good.
Yeah, so for those who turned in earlier, there's a whole panel discussion, and now it's followed up by a Q&A. The topic, of course, is intersectionality and, the whole social justice leftist rhetoric that's all the rage these days that all the kids are talking about. So here we go.
And I'm going to make sure you ask a question, because we came here to listen to these speakers. First question.
First of all, thank you all for coming here, and appreciate your openness to free speech, and I really enjoy the Rubin Report, and thank you. So as a young conservative who didn't vote for Trump,
Did or did not?
Did not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. So the thing I want to talk about is the executive orders. I agree with most of what he's doing with them, but I'm worried that this slippery slope with future presidents and President Trump could be a dangerous path to go down. What do you guys see the future of the executive orders, and how is there any stop to them, or what's the trend going to be with that?
Well, I actually studied political science, so I think I'm literally the only person who's ever used a political science degree for good. Look, I said this. You can find stuff that I wrote when Bush was president. I thought executive orders were bad. When Obama was president, I thought they were bad. And you see what's happening right now. All he's doing, an executive order, it doesn't go through the legislative process. So it's literally, he's just signing things that reverse other things, because they were done just by signing things that were reversing other things. This is why we need education more than anything else. We have, without boring you with like a real civics, we have 3 branches of government, and one of those branches is supposed to legislate, meaning write laws. One of the branches is supposed to make sure that those laws are legal, that's the courts, and the other one, the executive, is just really supposed to sign them. He's not supposed to write them. So it's just the game we play, and my argument, which this is definitely something that I've evolved on, would be that if you don't like the government, the best way to fight it is not to make it bigger, which is what a lot of progressives want. We hate government, we want it to be bigger. It doesn't even make sense. What you should want is, let's take the power away. If you hated Clinton and you hated Trump, well then don't give them the tools to run your life. You run it yourself. I think that's the best answer.
Well, it's the best answer.
Good libertarian position, of course. I did actually want to note that Trump's executive license is kind of blown up in his face. And he has, there's the state of Hawaii has been the latest high court to put a stop to his immigration ban. And there is kind of some checks and balances that are occurring, but it seems to be mostly from the Supreme Court. So I thought it's
The last objection though seems petty to me. On his second attempt to push through the immigration ban,
yeah.
that one just seems.
What was that, in case for us who missed
I
it?
don't, yeah, I'm not
Hawaii's
sure.
economy depends on tourism. This will affect tourists coming to Hawaii, therefore it's bad. I mean, look, I don't accept the premise that which Trump is pushing this through on, but let's say for a second we did accept that.
Mm-hmm.
Would a state literally have the right to go, no, stop the foreign invaders from coming in without hurt our economy? I mean, it's flat out ridiculous.
Yeah.
That to me
Yeah,
is
that's
an example
interesting.
of activist judges.
I mean,
What was Hawaii's economy like before this?
Right.
I mean,
I can tell
was
you
it
because
good?
I've been there, and
Was
I've-
tourism good? Because if they were getting in before this, and it was still good, then it doesn't make any sense.
I know that the second language of Hawaii is Japanese. I didn't know that there was all that many Arabic people going there, though.
Right.
see the question with Syrian refugees and basically just Middle Eastern immigrants in general is, I think the United States is in a different position than they are in Europe. It really truly is a crisis in Europe, and I think, at least in my opinion, the crisis is not so much because of the culture and the ethnicity of the people, but the sheer volume of people. And I think I might have brought that up in our last discussion. I mean,
Yeah, I totally agree, though.
I mean, they'd have the same problems in Europe if it was millions of Chinese instead of millions of Syrians or what have you. Let's go ahead and get back to the discussion.
So I will not accept any other answers on that one, so what's next?
Hello. I have
Hello.
too many questions for Christina. I hope to meet you somewhere sometime. I have a lot to say. But David, I have a question for you, and I'm thrilled to meet you. You
The
said...
only one who calls me David's my mom, so now I'm in trouble. All right.
Hi, son.
Ma.
My son made my shirt. It says make...
I'm hearing some
Feedback.
feedback. I don't know. So.
I would say mute your mics if you're not talking.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and continue then.
Nazis dead again.
Oh, there you go.
David, you said it was ironic that women were protesting a woman. Do you find it ironic when men protest men? I'm just pointing out your sexism.
Yeah.
Bingo!
Bingo.
Give that woman a cigar. She was great. I loved it. I loved that woman's comment there.
It's
That's
true.
it.
It's true, but I mean, I wonder if Dave Rubin might have had a point because Clinton's entire campaign rhetoric is, I'm a woman. You can change history by electing a woman because I'm a woman. Vote for me because of my gender and my sex.
I think he tries to explain himself.
Okay.
I don't think that's pointing out my sexism. I think it's ironic that they don't realize it. It's not ironic that they're doing it. I am 100% for protest. I mean, if any of you don't like what we said up here, I'd be happy to hear from you guys too. So it's not about that. It's the irony of, a woman thinks differently than me, so I have to protest.
So there,
but the principle of protest, of course, I'm 100%.
yeah. If I may, so the question is a good one, but it has an implicit assumption in it. When a man protests or when men protest a man, they're not protesting because they're a man, right? And so when women protest her, they're protesting her because she's a woman.
Right.
Protest who?
You protest what she said.
Okay, so go ahead and I guess pick apart that.
Wait a minute.
That
When
retort.
a woman protests,
Christina.
they're protesting her because she's a woman. They're not protesting the content.
When someone protests against Christina Hoff Sommers, it's because they're protesting the content. And
I hope that
Well,
when they're
they are,
protesting
but-
against anybody, they're protesting the content and not
But
and
they're
not their
harder on-
gender.
But they're harder on her because she's a woman. Like, they expect men to say the things, you know, against the radical feminism. But they want to hold her. She, of all people, should not be protesting it because she's a woman. That's what they're saying.
I don't know. I've gone up against some pretty staunch feminists, and I've got my cues handed to me a few times. So, but then again, I've also gone up against men who were either theists or neoconservatives or leftists, and got my head handed to me. But I hope it was because of the content, not because of my gender.
I mean,
Anyway.
I think there's something to take away from the ideas that Christina Hoff Sommers, of all people, because she's a woman, would be under greater scrutiny from intersectional feminists because she's a woman and she should just get it.
Well, and she's also
It's not just that she's a woman, though. It's also that she's not only a self-professed feminist, but she's got the credentials.
That's what I was just going to say.
And they can't erase that history, so
Right.
they have to attack her.
And she was a protester and a feminist in the 60s and 70s, and made a lot of headway in her educational career, speaking out for women. So now they can't forgive her for challenging some of the parts of that.
Well, she still calls herself a feminist, and I would agree with her. I think
But she's an independent feminist.
That's exactly right.
Individualist. Yes.
That makes all the difference.
And she analyzes the positions individually, like each one, and rejects the ones that are totally off the deep end and irrational. And they don't like it. They just want people to jump on board and scream and yell and support, the Ashley Judd of the world.
Yeah, and I mean,
she's principled enough to call out the hypocrisy when she sees it.
In spite of all the abuse she's receiving. So that's why I admire her so much.
I admire her too. I think she's great.
Same here. And I mean, they did point it out earlier in the discussion, how intersectional feminism is a lot of groupthink. It's a lot of doctrine, really. Dissent is not tolerated in that school of thought.
That's right.
All right, so we'll continue.
You protest what you... Okay, so look, so that's the other thing. This falls on a spectrum. You have some people who have a genuine disagreement of ideas. I haven't heard of... If I started tomorrow, went out and I started hearing protests of Trump by men because he's a man and he should be acting a certain way. But there's something implicit in the idea... There's something I find that makes me very uncomfortable. And I think this is very quick. I think that this is a shift that is incredibly helpful. You just close your eyes and you forget about the sex and the gender. I wrote a paper about this. It's called From People to Propositions. And you forget about what the people say and you just think about their words. Is it true, and Christina has a series of videos that you can watch. They're 5-minute videos. When she makes, so she makes evidence-based claims. There's no reason to get upset by evidence. You can get upset by inferences from evidence, like how should we act based upon this evidence. But if I'm, 10 feet from the door or whatever, you shouldn't be upset about that. You shouldn't be upset that someone articulates that. So sorry.
Well, I want to agree with the speaker. I do think that I don't think they object to me because I'm a woman. I think they object to me. They don't agree with what I'm saying. So what's wrong with that?
But do you think that they would object to you less? Do you think that the objections have less, they would be less passionate about them if you were a man? Or
I think if I were a man, I'd be dead.
Ultimately, I think we may be splitting hairs a little bit here.
What is she? At first I said to myself that she was doing so well the whole night, and then she says something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's the dumbest thing. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, or I have no idea what she means.
I think she's trying to make a sexist comment. Honestly,
it was dumb.
Well,
and
even if it was sexist, I didn't get it.
Yeah,
it was dumb and it was hyperbolic.
And she just probably shot it off and didn't really think about it.
Not thinking through what she was saying. We can chalk it up to.
Okay, so she made an emotional-based decision. Okay. We'll forgive her for that.
So is she saying that if a man was in her exact position that he'd be murdered by now?
I think that's what I was thinking she meant.
Well, there's a lot of guys I can think of that have said way worse things than her publicly.
Yeah, exactly.
Make a living out of it. And
I think if she had to do all over again, she wouldn't have said it.
I would agree. Yeah.
Okay.
It was shock value. That's what I see it as.
What the actual intention is, I would judge all of their intentions individually. But look, some people may look at you and go, she's selling out women. So they might, and that might be a man that says that or a woman that says that.
Yeah,
so again, we'd have to look at the individual intentions.
That's exactly right.
But I might have, I'll grant you one, Ma. I might have butchered the statement before. All right, I'm going to tell Dad what you said. We're good. It's all good. No problem.
Awesome. Sorry, that's loud. So obviously social media and all that has become pretty key to like public discourse and the marketplace of ideas, and Facebook, Twitter and all them, they're private companies, they can run their businesses, they see fit. But what can we do, since it's so key to how we discuss things nowadays, how can we hold these companies accountable to the principles of free speech and making sure ideas are, getting the same worth online, and fighting back against with the dawn of fake news and all that, it seems like it opens up to a lot of possible censorship in the future.
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. I think this is a bigger free speech issue than the government. Now, first off, just clearly, and I know you all know this, it's not a First Amendment issue when Twitter bans Milo, or I'm sure many of you know Sargon of Akkad, who got suspended today. But this is the field of information that we have. This is the highway to information. So when they ban people, it's different now. You also got to keep in mind that these companies have huge connections. They have huge political connections. When the people that when Zuckerberg's meeting with Obama, or Jack from Twitter's meeting with Trump, or whoever it may be, so the lines are getting blurred between what's government and what's private companies, and we need it. You guys probably got here because you heard about it through social media. So I would say it's as important as the First Amendment at this point.
And one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons that the founders made the freedom of expression first in the Bill of Rights is because it's a critical moral principle. It's not simply an important principle for government, it's a moral principle to allow, it's a democratic principle. And so they're not technically it's not against the law when private companies do it, but it is morally questionable if they have a policy and they're not applying it consistently and they're silencing certain people just haphazardly.
I kind of want to just pause there for a second. They keep talking about a marketplace and idea, or implying a free market of ideas, and then in the same breath talking about regulating ideas. Now, I mean, of course, you could say, well, the First Amendment is supposed to regulate in a way that guarantees free and open speech. And
but who was talking about regulating? It wasn't Dave Rubin, and it wasn't Ms. I forgot her name.
Christina Hoff.
Yeah, it wasn't Ms. Sommers. So
well, no, I mean laws regarding
the audience, the person in the audience.
Laws regarding free speech are regulation of ideas, are they not? So,
right, but I didn't hear either Ms. Sommers or Mr. Rubin call for that. I heard the person in the audience, his question had something to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think those two advocated it. They were just saying that you can call a business unethical for the reasons that Ms. Sommers indicated. You can say that if a business haphazardly regulates free speech and they don't do it consistently, you could make an argument that that business could be practicing unethical selective enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that she was calling for regulation. She wasn't saying that, oh, well, I think that Twitter and YouTube should be regulated if they do something unethical. Now, I might be wrong. Maybe she was calling for that. I didn't hear it.
Well, I mean, I kind of felt like it was implied as, well, we shouldn't allow Twitter to ban users that are controversial. Which
she might have said that. I don't know. I thought they were moving toward a market solution, because
they would be, but Christina's kind of a leftist.
Okay.
Well, let's pick up the video and then get the full context of what I'm saying.
Yeah, let's finish that.
It should be grounds for a lot of protest.
By the way, and many of the people who were against, remember the Indiana baker who didn't want to bake the gay wedding cake, a lot of people on the left were demanding that they bake that cake. Those are the same people who were okay with Milo getting the boot from Twitter. So you have to have principles when it's hard to have them, which sort of brings us back to the beginning about why you can't punch Nazis.
Hi. Wow, that is loud. So I grew up in a really small town, and in my small town, I was the liberal guy. I was the big government guy. I was called the socialist, right? I was the crazy activist. And then I moved to Portland. And I kind of just wanted your... Thank you. I kind of just wanted your thoughts on this kind of label I've come up with for myself. So instead of being called a liberal, because if I say that in Portland, people assume a lot about me, I started to call myself politically skeptical. Like I'm not conservative, I'm not liberal. I just take each issue as it comes out, I look at it, and I try to find the most reasonable answer for that issue. And I don't know, what do you think about that idea? Because I don't feel comfortable calling myself a liberal anymore.
Can we have the police take him out, please? We're not going to tolerate any of that bullshit. Pete, I feel like you should handle that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I've struggled with that myself. I do feel that I'm a liberal. I certainly don't feel like I'm a member of the left. So what you said, I thought it was incredible. These have been great questions, by the way. They've been questions and people haven't rambled on about stuff. The reason that I thought that was such a good question is because what you articulated is so hard to do, and it's something that I struggle with. Like, look, you mean to tell me, so you're on the right, and you mean to tell me all these views, you consider yourself a conservative, like all these liberal views are wrong? Like, really, like all of them? They don't take into account the vagaries of culture and society and geopolitical norms. It's silly to think that way. But that's how we evolved. We evolved because our cognitive architecture, our little ape brains, evolved to throw spears, in the savannah hunting gazelles. And we still have that same framework. We still have that same architecture. So how do you deal with issues on a case-by-case basis? And how do you get beyond ideology? I mean, it's an incredibly difficult question. I don't know the answer to that. I think Hitchens came kind of close to that. I think that looking at each belief and taking the evidence for that belief, and Jürgen Habermas has an idea of how to do this too, taking the evidence for that belief and looking at it and trying to be honest about why it is you believe it and being willing to change your mind if other evidence comes in. Now, how you do that is... Yeah, you've got to do it. And it's also the Holy Grail, because if you don't do that, then you're always beholden to a false view of reality. Great question.
Okay, I stopped it.
I just want to, I got a little echo there.
Know where it's coming from now.
All right. No, I don't think it's coming from, I think it's coming from that external speaker. There we go. It's gone now.
Okay, good.
All right. So Bogosian said, I do consider myself a liberal. I certainly don't consider myself a member of the left.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting. So I thought maybe Bogosian should take the world's smallest political quiz. As much for his own, to provide clarification for himself as much as others. And then we'll really see.
And then he goes on
he's
to
not part of the
that
left.
has been updated to be in tune with the progressive movement, though.
Uh-oh. What has been?
I think it would tell him he's on the left.
Oh, totally.
Oh, I think so too. I think Bogosian is on the left.
Well, no,
I think
I agree, but I mean, I guess I think that the progressive movement has so recently become so loud and so dominant in the left that almost needs to be treated as a different section on its own. It's on the left, but
But it's the regressive left is different from
right and
liberals,
exactly.
Go ahead.
I'm
That's okay. I was going to say your classic. Well, I don't want to say classical liberal because that's us.
And I think that's the only area where Bogosian differentiates himself from the left is the regressive part of it. That's it. I think if you took that element out, he would slide right in with the rest of it.
100%.
But that's enough for me. I mean, look, obviously I don't agree with
That's fine. If he wants to, just admit it.
Right.
Just say, don't give me that I'm a liberal, but I'm not part of the left. Just say, I'm a liberal, I just don't agree with the regressive left, okay? Right. So I believe in free speech and all the other leftist stuff, but I don't agree with censorship. I don't agree with the regressive left trying to have it both ways, and that's fine. But I thought what he said was just kind of he tried to straddle the fence, and I wasn't buying it.
Don't you think leftists in the early 20th century were saying similar things? They would say, well, I'm a leftist, but I'm not a communist. I mean, wouldn't that probably be a similar
or they would say, maybe they'd say I'm a liberal. In the early 20th century, they'd probably say they were a liberal, because I think left, I'm not altogether certain, but I think early in the 20th century.
Don't lie, you were there.
Left, but actually one of my aunts knew a lot of communists. I mean, we're looking, back in the 30s, and so, it was, she was much older she was the oldest in my mom's family, and so I wasn't politically savvy enough at a young age to talk to her about those things, but no, I mean the left. When you talked about the left, I think back in the 20s and 30s, I think it was associated with Reds. I don't think it was associated with liberalism. But that was it on Bogosian. That's it. I mean, just say what you are, and don't be ashamed of it. And don't try to hide it either.
Yeah.
So
certainly.
Hi. So I have a lot of people in my friend group and family group that have different political and religious beliefs from myself, and it doesn't necessarily bother me, but I've always been curious about how to have a productive conversation about that. How do you start to challenge their beliefs without making them feel like they're being attacked?
Well, first of all, it's probably not a good idea to attack people if you want to persuade them and convince them. And to show some, one of the things I try to do, not always successfully, but even in college lectures, is find common ground. Because often it's not that you really disagree on values. You agree on fundamental values, but you disagree on the evidence or details or what will get you there, what we mean, definitions, and so forth. So it's always good just to show some camaraderie and some understanding, not just dismiss the person, and that's not effective. To accept them and find that commonality, and then just slowly suggest other ways of seeing the matter, and just say, out of respect for you, I'm not saying you're wrong, but this is how I see it. That people can listen. You might not persuade them, but at least they can listen.
I think realizing that we don't have to agree on everything, which seems so obvious, so painfully obvious. I've had 3 guests on my show in the last month and a half that weren't for gay marriage. I have an episode coming out, I think, next week with Bishop Barron, who's the from the Archdiocese in LA, Catholic, He's in my house. My studio's in my house where I live with my husband, telling me why gay marriage is wrong. And we partied after. It was pretty good. But what I realized was, what am I going to do? Going to bludgeon this guy over the head and prove to him that Catholicism isn't right? Like, and he's going to be like, you know, you got me. I'm in on it. Like, it's just silly. That's just silly. You have to accept that the world doesn't have to bow to your needs and your wants. They might be moral and right and all that good stuff, but it's all right. So, you know what? At the end, I shook the guy's hand, and that was
And you agree to disagree. That's the other thing is why do we assume that nothing will be well in the world unless we're all in total agreement? And I worry that today, on college campuses, for example, people won't be friends with those with whom they disagree. And when I was in college, you had friends that, that person is, very Republican. I had a friend, we just thought that was weird, but, we liked her. And she tolerated us. And it just seems now there's more polarization. And it's fun to have friends you disagree with and argue. You have to get past, there's always a little friction at first, but they get past it and then enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, that's Jefferson's famous quotation. An ideological disagreement, a disagreement should never get in the way of a friendship. I mean, it's really silly why some people lose friendships. Look, so what? Someone has a different belief. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, maybe they're thoughtful. I'd much rather have a conversation and be friends with, Aristotle says the highest form of friendship is between two virtuous people. I'd much rather have a friend. You've had guests on your show, and then I could think like, wow, that's like a good guy. My friend Phil Vischer, who's literally his life's work is the antithesis of mine. He tries to indoctrinate young children into Christianity. He does, but he's a friend of mine. I text him. We communicate with each other. We couldn't possibly imagine two people who had more antithetical beliefs. Don't let these petty things, and I do mean that in petty, because what you need in a friend, in my opinion, is you need someone who's forthright in their speech, someone who's honest, someone who's authentic. You don't want someone who just parrot, who agrees with you. That makes your own epistemic situation worse, because then you start believing, everybody believes this. It becomes normalized, and then it's very easy to other people. Everybody becomes the other.
It's like Professor X and Magneto. Every now and again they hung out.
At least it wasn't Star Wars.
Don't do.
Kind of brought to mind an anecdote that really, for me, illustrates how quickly the tide has changed. Turning tides, is that a thing?
The tide has turned, yeah.
Yeah, anyway. So, in 2011, when Occupy Wall Street was a movement, all various cities around the country had their own, Occupy Wall Street movements within them. And I observed and even participated a little bit with the Occupy Wall Street movement here in Omaha. And you did have your hardcore leftists, socialists, Marxists, and a lot of libertarians, actually. It was just anti-establishment people uniting around a common concern. And some of the community, or some of the organizers for Occupy Wall Street here, I recall one time when they were addressing the group, and one of the organizers stepped forward and he said simply, "We do not agree, and that's okay." Now, in 6 short years, I think he would have been probably blacklisted from Occupy Wall Street, if Occupy Wall Street was a thing today. On the left and in activist movements in general, I don't think dissent is tolerated anymore, which is really going to work against activist movements there are activist movements that have good intentions and are trying to do good work, but if they continue to be hostile towards dissent, you could,
not just external dissent, but
yeah, exactly.
They eat their own,
and that's
and it's the death knell of their own party,
Right. So, if you went to an Antifa rally today and stepped in front of the group and said, "We do not agree, and that's okay," I mean, how long do you think they'd start before they, start shouting you down and calling you a fascist? I think it would be pretty much the knee-jerk reaction to that statement.
Right. No, I agree. They're much less tolerant today.
Mm-hmm.
As an aside, I don't know if you remember the Seattle case from the University of Washington where the Antifa guy got shot.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Okay. Well, they just released yesterday that the person who shot him was not the person he was going after, but it was actually the person's wife. She had the gun, and she shot the Antifa member because he had a knife and brass knuckles on. And was going towards her husband, so she pulled it out and shot him, and that's why the police never charged him. That's neither here nor there, but you just mentioned it, and it just reminded me.
It is interesting. Okay.
No, I think you're right, though.
Go ahead.
Hi.
That's okay, Jeremy. I was just going to say, I think they're going to reduce the numbers of the people that will participate in those groups and those protests astronomically, just by doing what you described, just attacking, and people that might be sort of interested are just not going to go. And so they'll just implode and it'll go away.
Isn't that what happened to Wall Street, though?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Occupy Wall Street did yeah.
It just dissolved, kind of.
It dissolved, and it was because I do remember when I was, kind of really loosely involved, that the leftists that were involved were really aggressive in their attempts to basically control and organize the group. They kind of, in no uncertain terms, said, okay, you libertarians, you can hang out with us, but you have to denounce capitalism. And we're like, well, there you go. That drove the libertarians out of it. So.
Right.
I'm curious, do you think that's what killed it, though? I mean, that's not what killed the Tea Party.
It's what really killed Occupy Wall Street was a lack of vision and focus. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, Occupy Wall Street was what? There's wealth disparity, and that's not fair.
Right. I mean, what was their goal? They never really had one. To take down Wall Street?
Of the top 1%
I mean,
of the world.
Exactly.
But yeah, I guess I would totally agree with you, because that's what killed the Tea Party, right? I mean, these spontaneous organizations, they spring into being, and maybe they serve their purpose, maybe they don't. But then when that moment is gone, they just kind of dissolve back into the ether.
Yeah.
That's always kind of made me want. No offense to the people who are official card-carrying members of the Libertarian Party, but it's just not my scene. But that's always made me worry about, like, how do you as a libertarian get this movement to grow and actually mean something, and not just evolve into a Tea Party or something.
That's a real concern. I mean, my involvement, which is is recent with the Libertarian Party, is I'm trying to ask the hard questions of the colleagues. What issues are we really going to get behind? What kind of legislation are we going to oppose? What kind of legislation are we going to support? What kind of legislation do you think we can be key in creating? What is, we need, I mean, taxation is theft is a great catchphrase, but what are we going to do to reduce the pilfering of people's hard-earned money to feed the government? What are we specifically going to do?
Well, what
do you suggest?
What I would suggest is, I mean, we're at the local level. I think locally, anyway, what I would suggest would probably be, there's a lot of public and private partnerships. A lot of it has gone into, there's a non-government organization called MECA, Metropolitan something, that secures a lot of state and federal money for building projects. And I kind of I would feel that getting MECA out of local politics would be helpful, because our city has taken on an immense amount of debt to pay for sports stadiums. Omaha is ridiculous. We have how many stadiums in a city of barely 500,000?
Well, we used to have just, one. We used to have the Rosenblatt Stadium, but we have the College World Series here.
We built that. We have the Quest Center, which is a large arena, and we have another arena that we bought that was built for the local university. And in the suburbs, there's another arena, and out in the suburbs, there's another stadium.
We have a ton of places that don't get used.
These venues there's just too many of them, and they've come at a huge expense, huge taxpayer expense.
Are they being used?
Not nearly enough to justify the cost.
Not generating.
Well, the worst thing that happened was, Rosenblatt Stadium held the College World Series, and when the College World Series went down, of course, the College World Series threatened to pull out because Rosenblatt was really old, and Rosenblatt also housed, our minor league baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
So then they built a brand new stadium downtown, at the expense of the taxpayer, of course. And they built the stadium to keep the College World Series here, but the only time it gets used is for the College World Series.
I think they got a simple majority.
So it's like 1 month a year.
Yep, yeah. and then the minor league baseball team couldn't keep it because they weren't allowed to keep the concession, so they moved. So then, one of the suburbs built a stadium for them. It's ridiculous.
Sounds like a mismanagement all the way around.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I think it's a simple majority that actually private funding. Just barely over the 51% mark. But
take a page.
What's that?
I was going to say, take a page from Denmark and send it to England. They'll take care of it. Sorry if that was too far off.
Yeah.
Rosenblatt, Guildenstein.
Yeah.
Good job on the obscure reference there.
Yeah, that was pretty great. I have that book too, and it didn't even hit me, like Rosenblatt, Guildenstern, Red. Yeah.
So how much more of this video? I mean, there's still another 25 minutes left. I'd kind of like to get into some freeform discussion too. Should we maybe do a few more minutes of this video and then move on to that?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Do one more question.
Thank you all for coming. I am Kurdish. I am from Iran. And because of the history of the Middle East, unfortunately, I grew up to consider Arabs as a dog with desert and my enemies, and Turks the same way. But I come to America, I have shed that tribalism, and I realize that the Arab is not the dog with desert. And they're not my enemies. And I don't even want them to be my enemies. I don't want to be enemy with anybody.
For you.
And no one. No. It makes me go to sleep really much better at night. And the thing is, unfortunately, the politicians could really care less about the issues. They are just wedges to keep us divided.
So what's your question, so we can...
Okay, my question is, how can the left and the right meet in the middle and go forward and do what's best for everyone, not just for one party or the other party, but for all of us, just all together? Thank you.
Listen would be the first thing.
Yeah, I think we have to drag them there kicking and screaming. The idea that politicians are going to magically do what's right or what's good, I think is kind of silly. You have to force them. And this is where I think I have a little bit of a silver lining with the Trump situation that I've tried to talk about over the last couple months, which is that when you have a populist, even if you hate him and you hate everything about him and he's dishonest and blah, 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 when you have a populist, you can maybe move a populist who just wants to be liked. And I think there's actual influence that we can have because of that. But most importantly, it's that you got to be engaged, because if you're not engaged, someone else will be, and most likely they're not going to fight for the things that you care about.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. And I think just to be specific, there are places to go for all of you. One is to listen to Dave Rubin's show. He has people on from the left and right, keeps it going. There's also a group called FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education. They are fighting they're trying to keep free speech alive on
Just
the
on
campus.
that, Greg Lukanov is going to come right from CFI. They're going to come here to campus, so we can talk about that next month. Sylvia in the back can talk about that.
And I'm forgetting, I mean, there are other people that are doing this. In Portland, there's also this website where they try to present sensible views on both sides. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I've heard of it, that's all.
It'll come to me.
He would not be in that category.
No. But he would be invited to give his point of view.
Absolutely.
And so but start with Dave Rubin and start with FIRE, and then this group I'm going to remember. That's it.
Okay.
That's good.
So kind of a kumbaya. So I guess one thing that's interesting, talked about Donald Trump being a populist, and how, you know, in theory anyway, a populist can be swayed to, you know, in the interest of preserving
Being liked.
Yeah, can be swayed to your position.
I don't really agree that Trump is like that.
I don't think Trump's like that at all. I mean,
I don't think he cares if anybody likes him.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't.
It's a business reaction. He wants to win the
think
game.
he sort of does. I think he sort of does, but anything that leans towards that, Bannon completely cancels out.
He ran as a populist. Donald Trump campaigned as a populist. Now, is he truly a populist in practice? I'm not sure if that's true.
Right.
I mean, I think of Bannon in much the same way I think of Dick Cheney, you know, and that's not to say puppet master, because I don't think Trump is, you know, but Trump was on the roll long before Bannon came around. But I don't know that Trump is that deep involved in the policies anymore.
As far as
feel like Bannon is pulling a lot of the heavy lifting of that now.
As far as the puppet master thing goes, I mean, and Cheney, Cheney probably he was basically the intellectual half of the Bush team, you know, the intellectual side of the Bush administration. But in retrospect, I don't think Bush gets enough credit for how he's a lot more intelligent than he was given credit for, honestly.
You're leaving out one person though, Karl Rove.
Karl Rove, yes. Yeah. Rove and Cheney were the brains.
Well, okay, so I would say that Bannon is the Karl Rove of this administration then.
Yeah, I think that's a better analogy, yes. What's he up to? I don't know.
Hating libertarians and free trade, that's for sure.
That's true.
Yeah. And that's how Trump, you know, ran as a populist, because populism is about isolationism and nationalism, and you know we're all under a common cause. America, fuck yeah, you know, that kind of thing.
Coming again to say.
Oh, I got claymation running through my head.
Yeah.
America, fuck yeah.
Anybody remember the Dick's speech from that movie?
I didn't see the movie.
Oh my god, the
Team
sex
America World
scene
Police
was hilarious.
Oh yeah. Team America
Correct
World
yourself.
Police.
Pussies don't like dicks, but they need dicks.
It's a great movie. It really is. Really is worth watching. So we'll go now into kind of some freeform discussion on whatever current events. Any news stories that's caught a person's eye, any of you guys your eye or ear that you want to bring up for starters?
I mean, there's the aspect of Trump and him signing, basically nullifying Obama's executive orders in regards to climate change legislation and where that's going.
Yeah, there's.
So when getting to that talk when Dave was talking about how executive orders bad, I don't see executive orders bad if they are rescinding bad previous executive orders. So there's huge strength in that. But I think most of us know that Trump's going to rescind anything that Obama has or tried to do.
And the next person will just reinstate it all again anyway. I mean, it's all pointless. As long as we're not doing things, as long as they don't go through Congress, everything is just a shell game where 1 minute it's there and the next minute it's over there and then it's back, and it's all pointless.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, and it's Congress is in some ways kind of at least on in the theater of politics, Congress is starting to take a back seat thanks to executive order.
But it has for a while.
What was that?
But it has for a while. The last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
No, because so I read something interesting by Jonathan Haidt, who mentioned that when Newt Gingrich took over the Congress in 93, was it? 93, 96, one of them, I don't know. That he encouraged all of the members to not have a residency in D.C. Not for their families anyway, right? So leave your families back in your home states and then fly home every weekend. And before that, whenever a congressman or a senator, whenever they were elected, they would move out to D.C., move the whole family. And and he made the point that, at that, when they did that, it kind of fostered a certain level of community, so that you'd go to baseball games, you'd go to barbecues, and you'd run into people from the other side of the aisle, and you were forced to be sort of friendly with them. But since then, nobody does that anymore, and that he thinks that contributes to a lot of the political rancor that we see between the two parties now. But ever since that rancor has existed, nothing gets done anymore. So the presidents have increasingly relied on that to get anything done. Now, me personally, I freaking love gridlock in Congress.
Oh, yeah,
but
it's a good thing.
Yeah,
it is.
Every time I say that, people's heads twist off and they look at me like I'm Satan. But I'm like, look, you're talking about a body who only exists to make new laws. And that's what they do. Day in, day out, they make new laws. And every single day, the guy who was yesterday a law-abiding citizen is today a criminal. I love gridlock.
So why not have them just telecommute? They don't even have to live in Washington, D.C. You could set it up so they could just telecommute to work and stay in their district and have to be around the people and votes and they actually hear. That's just a thought.
Well, I think his point was that he wants it to go back to the time when congressmen, both left and right, all still did live in the same neighborhoods, and they all had to. Their kids went to the same schools, there, and all on and on and on. So it forced them to interact on a social level, which made things easier for interaction on a political level.
Gotcha. I was thinking the opposite. Never mind.
So, we've spent so many episodes of this Skypecast talking about politics. But we're libertarian atheists. So I've been looking for topics on that, and I just found here's a Newsweek article, and there's actually another couple other outlets that reported this, kind of bottom of the page, back page, if you want to call it that. Headline is Atheists and Very Religious Fear Death the Least. And this is according to an Oxford study that's been recently published. And
that would make sense.
It does.
Atheist and very religious?
Yes, so out of the groups that fear death the least, it's the very religious and atheists.
That's logical. I mean, they're totally convinced that they have Jesus or whatever God in their hearts and they're going to heaven.
Yeah,
There's life after death.
They're looking forward
That's
to salvation. Right. They expect it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so deeply entrenched in their religious beliefs that there's no way that they won't be of the chosen people.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why religion became so prolific in the
Sure.
first place, is because, it helps to answer, certain questions, but it also kind of gives people reassurance, because everyone doesn't like to think that when they die that's it, but atheists know that when you die, that's the end.
That's
so
it.
And and I've come to grips with that. I know when I was about 35, so about 10 years ago now, I thought a lot about it. That's when I think I really started to become really aware of my own mortality. Because before that, you know you're going to die, but it's not like something you think very much about. And then right around, I know for me, 35 is when I started to go, wow, okay, I'm really going to fucking die someday. And it was a very scary thought. It was a scary thought. And so I've had to come to grips with that, because I know when I die, that's just it, I'm over. So,
I'm still in that phase.
Well, I think I just looked at it one day as like, you know what, I hope I just go to bed one day and just never wake up. And I'll never know the difference, so it's all right, I really hope that's the way I go out.
See, my fear... Oh, go ahead.
No, by all means, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, my fear of death basically is the process of dying. I'm convinced that the moment that you're dying, it's not a good feeling. And it
depends on what the cause of death is.
I suppose so.
It varies so greatly. Having worked in a nursing home, I've seen many people die. And one year I went to 24 funerals as part of my job was to go to their funerals. We had like a rash of just old people with cancer, whatever. So I kind of have seen a lot of different ways, and the process is what's hard.
Right.
Did you hire a new nurse?
I'm a social worker.
No, did they hire a new nurse during that year?
You said, was I a new nurse?
And we took a dark turn.
Blame the nurse. I don't know.
Open up some beds.
I just imagine the process of dying is really uncomfortable and probably painful, and those are feelings that I don't like.
But not always. I mean, there's people that are just become comatose, and then they just slip away.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that have lung cancer, and they struggle for every single breath until the last one. I mean, it varies so greatly. It all just depends on,
I don't know, man. I gotta say, I'm with Ray Kurzweil on this one. I get the argument that, life ending is what gives you drive in life. And I can get that, and I can understand that, I can respect that. But I gotta say, I don't see anything ennobling and good in the passing of consciousness. Not my own, not my mother's, not my siblings, and surely not my kid. I know I'm going to sound like a hippie now, but I genuinely hope that with the technological exponential growth, that my hope is that my kids will never die.
Well, you better get over that one.
but eventually, even if you're immortal, some accident's going to take you out.
That's
sure.
true.
Something is going to happen.
Yeah,
so,
and I guess I can accept that. I can deal with that. It's just this inevitable march towards the end that kind of, and I've alluded to this in the past, but, it's just like, that makes me flirt with nihilism, like it's nobody's business. And in the sense of, like, what's the point? If I'm a good guy, if I'm a bad guy, if I treat my kids nicely, if I treat them like shit, what's the difference? I'm going to die, then they're going to die, and then it won't even matter anyway, so...
I think
I struggle with it.
I think I had the opposite reaction. Like for me, I realized I'm like, well, I'm like, shit, I haven't done a lot of things that I want to do, and what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I mean, there was things I'm like, I guess I just want to make the most of what I have.
Yeah,
I know, especially when I hit 40, was like a big life changing thing for me, and that's why. I mean, I think I've probably accomplished more in the last 5 years than I accomplished all the other time before that,
Because that it's ticking away.
Yeah.
You
realize you don't have as much time. Well, and time goes faster, too. So you realize that you don't have as much time as you had, before. I think because, when you're in your 20s, I think, I thought, oh, yeah, I've got plenty of time to be successful and do this or, travel the world and all this stuff. And then one day you're 40 and you're like, fuck. I don't have nearly the time I thought I had.
I was thinking today, well, okay, if the country goes, I probably have 35 to 40 years if I live a long time left. And I thought, that's probably not enough time for the country to completely go down. So I'll probably be dead before we are completely in the tubes and having a complete anarchist. You know, that was like cheerful.
Right.
Maybe I'll
In a
die
bad sense, right?
so bad that I don't know, that I'll have to go live in the woods and pretty much learn how to shoot guns fast.
So how
look at it
about
from
we
that way, I
explore?
can escape from how horrible this life could become.
Yeah.
You can move out here, Betsy.
All right.
So what if we
With all those leftists, with all those wonderful liberals.
Yeah.
That was talking about.
Only Seattle. Come on.
They'll be the ones we feed off of.
There you go.
So, like, what if we explore? I mean, maybe speculate. Why are the casually religious then so afraid of dying?
Because they believe in hell. I mean, they believe in punishment, but they are not sure that they're living the life to get into heaven.
Yeah, they're probably just unsure of what the future holds or what, the life after death holds. So, they're just worried enough to, be concerned about it, but not quite ready to commit to living the right lifestyle.
Yeah.
So.
That's right.
I hope I don't go to hell.
There is no hell.
The atheism was directly because at one point, when the Iraq War started, and I was like, oh, okay, shit's getting real, and I better get real about my religion too, because I never know, tomorrow might never come. So I was like, it's time to buckle down and get religion, and that's when I started getting really serious about religion, and that's when it all fell apart, of course, because it was like, none of this makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, it was very much a fear of, first my mother was raised with eternal salvation. No, I'm sorry. She raised us with, not eternal salvation. Like you could lose your free pass to heaven if you turned your back, and that terrified me. I was like, oh God, what is it like for every time I sin, or is it like 3 sins or 12 sins, or how
Right, they
often
tell
do I
you
gotta,
that, but they don't make it clear what do I exactly have to do? It's all
So then
you're always
later
afraid.
So later on, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to be the eternal salvation type. I'm going to believe in eternal salvation. And for a while, that was like all hunky-dory happy. And then somebody was like, well, yeah, but you don't know if you've actually genuinely been saved then. And it was like all over again. I was like, fuck me, So, the casually religious, they're the ones that are like, I don't know. I can't answer for sure that I'm going to this place or that place. And they're the ones that fear the most because they believe in hell.
Yeah, exactly. So once you don't believe in any of it, I found it just a huge weight off my shoulders.
Exactly,
Just
very freeing.
It was like, oh my gosh, we're all just going to be gone. And you won't have to worry about what's my consciousness going to be like after my body's dead, blah, 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 you know?
I think it makes it easier. I mean, you spend some time wrestling with the fact that you're not going to live forever and then it's going to all be over. But then at the same time, it's like it is very freeing. You don't have to worry about a lot of the things that other people worry about. So, but
I find it
still have my
comforting
moral
to think,
compass,
like,
though.
look at all the hundreds of millions of people that have gone through death. And so I can too. I mean, it's like what, you know what I mean? It's not going to be, there's no choice. So you might as well just not worry about it.
It's the one thing that everyone can do.
That's right. That's right. You don't have to be good at it because you have no control over it.
Everybody's good at dying. We do it all. We all do it very well. We all succeed.
Right.
Not my kids.
Well, I mean,
well, just hope they don't go before you.
I'd like to see a singularity happen. I'd like to upload my brain to a computer and be immortal. I just don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime.
I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime either.
I'm not confident it'll happen in my kids' lifetime
I'm holding
either.
out hope that for my kids.
I'm not even sure it'll happen in their lifetime, honestly. But
I think the rate at which technological... I mean, look, all we have to do is make a computer that's smart enough to start designing its own improvements. And once that happens, forget it, it's over.
So then the world just keeps having people be born and nobody dies. That would be real good.
No, I don't think that would happen, right? Like if you were born today, let's say you're born today and you knew that barring some horrible accident, or maybe you even have a backup in the cloud, right? You're not going to die. do you feel like, oh, I got to hurry up and have kids? I'm at that age in my life where I have to have kids. Nah, I think all the traditional rules are out. Like, who's going to get married if you're going to live forever? Till death do us part.
So that means women have to have periods for like hundreds of years?
No.
Right, Heather?
No, because at that point, the technology is taking over. You can change the biology however you want.
Right.
All these issues that we're having with gender and all that won't be issues. And maybe people understand better.
This would fundamentally change all of society. Work scarcity ends. It could turn really dystopian really fast. But every single facet of society. Right now you go into a game like Second Life. I don't know if you can call it a game, and you choose your avatar. You can be whatever you want. You can have wings. You can fly. You can be a female dragon. That could be you. We're approaching a day when that can be real. Now, my personal belief is that'll all be like virtual, kind of like Matrix style, and we'll just live in little tubes kind of thing.
Did you know that on Second Life? Did you know that the Linden dollar in Second Life is an actual commodity?
Yep.
You can trade your Linden dollars for real dollars online.
Yep, and they sell them too. Sell them for real money.
Oh, that's interesting. Of course, so is gold in World of Warcraft as well. So.
Yeah.
So
like he was saying, there's the whole gender thing. That's gone. Like, I want to be a girl today, and maybe tomorrow I'll be a dragon, and marriage is out the window.
So wait, so the progressives that a lot of people mock because they say, well, there's 700 genders and you can be a dragonkin if you and it's perfectly acceptable. That with the technological singularity and augmented reality, that does essentially become reality. I guess are they truly being progressive, and are they really ahead of the curve, or are they just delusional?
No, they're not ahead of the curve. They're like the lone loonies in the desert that just happen to be right about something before they they're wrong, but they will be right. And they don't know that.
They're right, but they're right for the wrong reasons.
Right. But yeah, just take a while and think about the repercussions of that. It's coming. It's coming. I believe that's coming in my kid's lifetime.
Yeah.
And if that's,
you
should watch a movie called Transcendent Man. That will kind of.
I might have seen that.
Blow your mind.
I watched a lot of futurist documentaries, and I read some Kurzweil, and his claim is that we got about 15 years before the singularity hits. He estimates around somewhere in the 2030s for it to happen. I think that's a little ambitious.
Yeah, I think that's ambitious, but nonetheless, I'm going to make it to the 2030s. All of us here will make it to the 2030s. Well, Adam, he's
I won't.
years.
I don't.
I won't.
That problem with my family.
What was that?
Doing stupid stuff.
My kids will definitely make it to the 2030s and beyond that. So, again, all that has to have. See, the thing is it doesn't have to reach the point where you live forever. It just has to reach the point where it adds another 10 years to your life, and then within those 10 years, they figure out how to add another 15 years, and so on and so forth, until eventually they're like, oh yeah, we can replace every part with cyborg parts now, or whatever.
Yeah.
But see, I wouldn't mind living a long time as long as my body was in decent shape.
Well, in your mind.
Yeah.
I'm more afraid of having dementia,
if you get Alzheimer's, there's no point.
Which has not been solved at this point. So
there's no point in living then.
Alzheimer's floating around.
That'd be the ultimate rave. Come on.
Hey, what was it? You know what we need? Remember that Robert Heinlein book about the really wealthy man who was going to die? He died in a car accident. He was going to die. He was really sick, and his secretary got killed in a car accident, so they transplanted his mind inside of her body. Do you remember that story?
I don't recall that one.
I don't.
That's actually one of my favorite books to read. It's really, really... Or no, maybe it was Ray Bradbury. I can't remember if it was Ray Bradbury or Robert D. Heinlein that wrote it, but it's like, I remember checking out from the school library of all places way back in the day, but...
So here's the interesting thing I thought about. Okay, so imagine, assuming immortality with good health, mental and physical, how many years would you be alive before you just started to get bored with everything?
I'm already
that's
there.
That's kind of like the Anne Rice thing, right? No, you say that, but you say that because you're in a body that's aging too, right? Like, let's assume you're in a 20-year-old body.
Gee, thanks for reminding me.
But I mean, seriously.
That's why I go to the gym. God damn it. trying.
Yeah, exactly. So,
You're as young as the woman you feel.
You want to push back the clock.
I feel
right?
about 80.
So I guess that kind of goes towards the Anne Rice.
Yeah.
I always liked her take on the oldest vampires, how they just basically turn into statues because they were just so bored with existing.
That's funny.
Yeah, but there are people in their teens and 20s that are bored themselves. So how much is that?
But then you get to define your own death at least, right? Like it's on your terms. It's not
that I could go for, right?
It's not this Alzheimer's that comes and takes you and you are like, I still had so much to do kind of thing.
Yeah, if you could have control over that, that is more appealing. I don't really want to live forever. I mean,
I think at some point you would get bored. I'm pretty sure I would.
Before you die.
I'd be curious to know what the future holds as far as technology.
Yeah. And what kind of world will we be living in?
But on top of that,
it could be a nightmare too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
saying. Be careful what you wish for.
It could be one that you create, though, right? I mean, like, you will have the ability to create the world you want.
But what about everybody else creating the world they want? How do you...
And then instead of going to their house for dinner, you come over to their existence for the dinner, right? I mean, it's like... And I know it sounds silly, but that's coming, right? Like, everybody's got their own little personalized matrix that suits them, and it's coming.
When you're talking about the singularity, you're talking about underlying factors, that externalities in regards to things happening to you instead of your consciousness. How's that going to change? Like the aspect of boredom. Who says that they won't figure out what boredom is, and there's a way to getting around that? That you're going to grow exponentially mentally from there because we've gotten past that biological wall that we all run up against. We're only as intelligent.
I mean, at that point, we're not human anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not human anymore. So our world's going to greatly expand in the eternal aspect of what our abilities are. So we'll become almost God and goddess-like in certain aspects.
It's going to be a lot harder to get bored, obviously. I
believe it would. But maybe they are some
people
just want to be bored. I don't know.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to work 1,000,000 years and come to the conclusion that 42 is the answer.
Oh, so I did find the name of that book. It was Robert Heinlein, and it was called I Will Fear No Evil.
Oh, okay.
So, yep.
So another atheism topic that before we wrap it up here. So there's a Netflix biopic that's coming out about Madeleine Mary O'Hare, the founder of American Atheists.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Won the Supreme Court case that basically
ended prayer in schools.
Ended prayer in schools. I mean, I hate to say ended prayer in schools because students are still allowed to pray. It's just the faculty is not allowed to impose it upon the students anymore.
My friend David posted that in Libertarian Atheist, actually.
Oh, okay.
He posted that movie blurb in there.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yep. It looks good. 'Cause, I mean, I remember reading about her, and I can remember they documented or, talked about her death, like, a few times. I've seen it, like, I think once on Unsolved Mysteries, and then I think it was on another one of those kind of crime shows that you see here and there.
Yeah, there's been a couple documentaries over the years. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've watched anything, but I'm like, I just barely remembered her. For some reason, I thought it was like her kid that conspired to kill her, but I guess it was like her business partner.
Yeah, the way she died was shocking.
I'd like to watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thanks for ruining it for me, because I didn't know she died.
Oh, well, she's been dead. I mean, this is
well, in the 90s, I think.
95, she died.
Right.
How about a little bit of a spoilers warning next time, you jerk?
I mean, blame
wanna know
the
who
media
else
because
died?
they reported the whole thing when it happened.
I can remember seeing like her son that lived, that became a fundamentalist Christian. He was making the rounds at different churches. I lived in Dallas at the time where all the mega churches were, and he was, speaking out about it and from the Christian perspective.
When traveling through space, one should have a towel, especially when you could wrap it around your head, because the bladder beast of Trawl will assume that if you can't see it, it can't see you.
What the hell?
What was the alien race that invented deodorant before it invented the wheel because it had like so many arms, so it had all those armpits? I can't remember what he called them.
My dad gave me the trilogy when my dad was always a very, he loved to give me things to read when I was growing up. And when I was probably right around 11, my daughter's age, my dad gave me the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the original trilogy, So I had a lot of fun reading that, so. I still have the original.
That's really, I mean, humor aside, there are so many concepts that he so adroitly handles with humor.
Yep.
That, I mean, you get a science education just from reading that book.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
I mean, conceptually, it just blows the doors off your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was good stuff. Good stuff.
There's also another Netflix movie that came out like a month ago. I haven't watched it yet, but about a scientist somehow confirms the existence of an afterlife. Robert Redford plays a scientist, and he confirms the existence of an afterlife. So everybody just starts offing themselves. They start shooting themselves in the head, and it's like mass suicide all over the globe.
Oh wow!
And everybody's like, "Well, fuck this," but
right?
He's like, "I can't tell you what's on the other side, though."
Right. Well, yeah, it makes sense because you have to die to go there. So, well, that's interesting. We should maybe we could watch one of those sometime, independently, and then discuss it sometime.
We should actually. Why don't we? I mean, speaking of here, which I brought up initially, since they're coming out with that biopic on Netflix, we all got Netflix. I mean, I don't know. I do.
I do.
Okay.
I don't.
He doesn't. That's right.
I have extremely slow internet. I can't stream anything.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
I was going to suggest maybe a watch and a review discussion of the biography.
Well, Kern could get the gist of what's going on. I mean, just by listening to us, it doesn't mean he couldn't.
Well, he can.
In
I mean,
discussion,
he can definitely read the biography that's available on online. Wikipedia is
true enough.
Free and easy.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me go ahead and end the recording. All right, so this is ending the March 30th edition of the Libertarian Atheist Skypecast. We will see you next week.